International negotiation and intercultural work has become for many companies the basis for the search for growth and global positioning. For this, intercultural differences have become a real challenge for multinationals and businesses that seek to attack new international markets. Today, multinationals and their staff seek a forceful approach to cultural differences in order to know them, identify their tastes, needs, and interests in order to cover the market effectively and lasting over time. For this, responsible people seek a physical approach where experience becomes the best intercultural training. This approach is based on many perspectives, so this approach turns into various methodologies that result in the understanding and approach to a new culture. Among one of the methodologies is consensus, which is understood as a file that over time takes on a greater boom in the file of interculturality. In this way, the formation of an appropriate pedagogy is sought from an evaluation of strengths and weaknesses guided by situational signals and self-control scales, where from this, success is a different cultures can be predicted globally. These evaluations are based on brief self-reports applied to intercultural communication together with self-confidence. In this way, a self-evaluation of the individual's attitude is carried out, measuring how positive or not their reactions are. Once the evaluation has been carried out, the methodology of the training program arrives, where the main objective is the optimal design of training and development, understanding the cultural background by improving cognitive awareness and knowledge of the proposal. A comprehensive review of the training methods for the evaluation of intercultural training is carried out, where three aspects are identified. The first one is the intercultural training. Is based on the transfer of cultural knowledge of basic information. With this method, specific knowledge is obtained, but metacognitive competence are not addressed, for which is in many cases they are forced to meet in several times. The second one is the training based on attribution, where various interpretations of critical incidents involving intercultural encounters are made. In this way, a knowledge of how they usually react to different circumstances is obtained, and in this way it is sought to accommodate the proposal according to their reaction. The third one is the assimilating method, which provides a way to encourage the development of global and multicultural perspective so that integration at the intercultural level is bearable and with a greater probability of obtaining positive results. As mentioned by Tan and Schwa, informative and experimental training is the best methodology to establish international negotiations. In the literature on intercultural training, informative and experimental training works better in the current thinking, which is why there is a need to provide training and transmit this base in different learning styles as metacognitive and cognitive phase training, the motivation phase training, and the behavior phase training. This is to understand and approach the intercultural reality to build a base from by the assessment on individual needs and a solid theoretical framework in the execution of intercultural negotiations. Many authors and documents present in their contents what should and should not be done in protocol, but cultural aspects that are part of the cultural protocol but are not taken into account, not because they are a little importance, but because they are so alien aspects to negotiation that are assigned by not giving them the necessary importance and that can significantly and comprehensively alter a negotiation. Here is a case where some aspects that should be included within cultural protocols are clearly shown, not because of the positive or negative, simply because they must be taken into account by the sense that contains it. Aratec was an organized company dedicated to the manufacture of hydraulic presses for the treatment of waste in different materials: plastic, paper and cardboard, scrap and metal. It had different types of press models: horizontal boulders, box presses, double compaction crushers and granulators. Approximately 80% of sales were made in Spain and the rest in Latin America, especially in Mexico and Peru, countries where the company had commercial agents. Due to need to increase sales because the fall of the national market, the company's management had decided to go to internationalization and was in the phase of hiring an export director. But in the meantime, they had entrusted to commercial director Juan Olmedo that it began to carry out negotiations in several Latin American countries, starting with Colombia, which in the short term was the one that offered the greatest potential for the export of its machines. Juan Olmedo, about to turn 50, had spent a large part of his professional career in Aratec, had studied industrial master milling, and for 8 years he worked in a machining company, auxiliary to the automotive sector, and with a lot of effort he had managed to graduate in business administration. He presented himself for the commercial director of Aratec. He was elected for the position especially because he demonstrated a very good understanding of the operation of the machines and also because he showed a lot of desire to work, in addition to being totally available to travel most of his time in search clients throughout Spain. But Juan was completely unaware of the cultural protocols to be able to successfully negotiate with Colombia. Juan traveled to Colombia with three business objectives. The first one was to contact potential commercial agents to name one of them as your representative in Colombia. The second one was contact companies in the waste recycling sector, especially scrap metal and textile waste, which, as it had detected, were the sector in which there were the largest number of companies in Bogota. The third one was the interview with some public bodies related to environmental and recycling issues to find out how the beds for waste treatment and classification were carried out. That Monday, Juan had three interviews at 7 o'clock at the hotel with the first candidate for commercial agent, at 10:30 a.m. in the district secretary for the environment of the government of Bogota, which was in the center of the city, and at 3 p.m. in Fontibón, an industrial district about 15 kilometers from Bogota, with one of the main Colombian scrap companies. With the candidate for commercial agent, Juan arrived very punctual at 7 o'clock a.m. He was very surprised that the candidate did not arrive until 7:10. They went to the dining room where the candidate served himself a copious breakfast of coffee, scrambled eggs with onion and tomato, short meat, and cheese arepas. Juan only had an orange juice, coffee, and a muffin. He did not understand how at such early hours you should eat so much during most of the meeting that lasted an hour and a half. It was Juan who spoke. The candidate agreed to everything what Juan said and from time to time he said the cool word that Juan Olmedo did not understand. At night in the hotel he entered to online dictionary of the Royal Spanish Academy of Language and saw that the word chévere was used in several Latin American countries that mean great or excellent. At the end of the meeting, Juan Olmedo gave the candidate a commercial contract model similar to those used by the company with its agents in Mexico and Peru. Unlike the contract they had with the agents in Europe, The contract for Latin America did not include an indemnity clause in the event of termination, as was required in contracts signed in the European Union, according to the Directive 85/65/35 of the European Commission. Juan Olmedo simply gave him the contract so that he could read it. Regarding the appointment with the public body, the Bogota District Secretary of the Environment, Juan arrived late because he did not take into account the permanent traffic jams that the city of Bogota suffers. When he arrived at the office, the director of the Bank of Projects, he was not in the office and he did not know when he would come. Juan Olmedo sat in the reception and waited, quite impatient. 40 minutes later, the person in charge arrived, and it took another 10 minutes for the secretary to introduce him to her office, despite the fact that the meeting started almost 1 hour late. He did not apologize. During most of the meeting, it was the project manager who asked Juan Olmedo and not the other way around as planned. One of the questions was his first trip to Colombia. What had you thought of? How was the economic situation in Spain? Was he from Real Madrid or Barcelona? How was Colombian player James Rodriguez playing for Real Madrid? What Spanish university have better environmental courses since you wanted to send your daughter to Spain next year to specialize? Juan Olmedo had no interest in answering these questions, and in the case of the last two he was unaware of the answers. At the farewell, they exchanged cards and told Juan to get in touch with an executive from one of the main Colombian companies participating in the Bogota Sustainable Construction Program. Typical situation due to the bureaucratic culture of the Colombia public sector that Juan was unaware of. And in front of the last appointment, Juan Olmedo was quite hungry since 6 hours had passed since breakfast. The last interview of the day was in Fontibón, an industrial district about 10 miles from downtown Bogota. As he did not want to take risks, he asked a taxi driver how long it would take to get there, and he said that it would take about 30 minutes, since at that time there was not too much traffic to leave the city. He had an hour and a half for lunch. He chose an Italian restaurant as it was very traditional with the food, and any cuisine other than Spanish or Italian seemed too exotic to him. He arrived at the recycling company. There the owner of the company and his son were waiting for him, who greeted him very kindly and introduced him into a rather messy office, full of folders and even some scrap metal. Immediately the secretary entered to the office and asked him if he would like a red wine. The surprised face of Juan, the owner of the company, he told him that red in Colombia was a black coffee, coffee only in Spain. Juan declined the offer, saying that he had just had one for lunch. They made a visit to the company's facilities during which they told him what they did and the expansion project they had. Back in the office, the secretary served the three reds. Now Juan did drink the coffee, appreciating its smoothness and flavor. Not in vain, Colombia coffee is reputed to be one of the best in the world. The owner went straight to the point. "And your machines, what are their prices?" he asked Juan. The offer includes the different concepts, price of the machine, transport cost, in Spain international and in Colombia, and tariff 8%. In addition, there were three delivery alternatives. In total, the price of the scrap pressing machine placed in Bogota was 83,489 euros. The father then intervened to ask what the payment conditions was. to which Juan, who was perfectly clear since he did not want to take risks, answered to the following: 30% when ordering the machine, 40% when shipping the machine in Spanish port, and 30% within 60 days of commissioning of the machine and customer compliance. The father showed his discontent, pointing out that this was not the way they had to pay for their purchase. At the farewell, the owner of the company told him to visit them the next time he came to Colombia and that he was going to invite him to a typical Colombian meal. Juan tried to put one of the best of his smile, but his few gastronomic hobbies did not help him. Juan was unaware that one of many occasions negotiations in Colombia are accompanied by their national drink coffee. He was also unaware that within the cultural protocols of negotiation in Colombia, threatening or the bid to get a better price or better conditions, and finally it was also unaware of the gods, hosts, and religions that Colombia are. With this, we can confirm that the importance of studying and knowing the reality and customs of the culture.